Hi, my name's Andrew McLaren. Today we're going to talk about how you can use grant funding and 3D programs to have students have authentic input in creating a garden space or expanding upon an existing one. This is a really cool way of getting STEM in the science classroom and in the garden, where you're incorporating that technology piece in there and the engineering as well. It's really, really good as well for getting grants. So if you write a grant saying like I'll have students using 3D programs to design this garden space, grant funders really like that. And you'll have tons of evidence with the 3D programs and those submissions to show the grant funders how you had students create this. I really, really liked doing this. I had a nonprofit help me do this, as well as another teacher. And so in this video, I'm going to talk to you about some examples of final product that we had, where essentially there was a ton of experts that came in and saw the competition results and voted on them. And then I'll go over the general unit structure and how you can use the SketchUp program to do this. So unfortunately, I don't have access to the files that I used for this. It was mostly in the other teacher's Google Drive, but I did have a local news station come by and check out the competition design process at the very end, where we had students lay out all their different designs and their teams, and there were experts that were able to vote on which designs they liked the most. So we took the three best winning designs and used the common aspects of that in our garden space. We already had about $2,000 from a grant, and we were able to then have the students work with that budget and pair up sixth and eighth graders together. So this was during my elective and her science class. It's just kind of like an end of year project for both of us, and it really, really worked out nicely having the grade levels come together. So this is the news where they ended up showing in the KVAL 13. They came by and checked it out. So I'll show you a couple of the pictures and then the video. So here's one of my students with their little 3D design. You can kind of see that right there. Here's an expert checking out someone else's design on the computer. And there's a whole bunch of teams of students presenting their work and some teachers that were checking it out. And here are some actual students out in the garden talking about what the garden space actually currently looks like, as well as their planned additions. So if we go back here, I believe there's a short video here.
Students measured the garden space,
Here we
brainstormed their
go.
expansion, and created a scaled 3D model. Next year, their plans will come to life.
We have grant funding to do this project, and we'll be building it next fall. We started the garden last year and then got more money in order to expand it throughout this school year.
The school will be using elements from the top 3 designs. Throughout this school year, students have grown barley and worked on radish experiments in the garden.
So as you can see, that was a really cool thing. Johanna was the other teacher that was involved, and there was a lot of interest in it. It's just something that people love to see, the community loves to see, and grant writers also are very likely to fund this. So the general structure of this unit was that we had to introduce the project and get them into their groups. We chose those groups because we had sixth graders working with eighth graders. We wanted to have good role models for the students that needed them, as well as ones that would like work well together. And then we had students create a budget list of items that they wanted to purchase with a short description. That was like 1 or 2 periods. They did end up fixing that throughout the process and change it, so you don't need to spend a ton of time on that. Then I had my students watching the SketchUp tutorials because they hadn't used it before. Luckily, the eighth graders had already used that program, so they had some familiarity with it, and they were able to then teach the sixth graders. So I wouldn't recommend spending a ton of time on that, but you can have them create a model of any space. It could be their own yard or another part of the school or something like that, just to get some familiarity with the tools. And then you actually need to have students take measurements of the garden space. So then those measurements can be used to make a SketchUp file. I believe when we did this, I ended up making the SketchUp file from their measurements, but you could have students do this themselves and make the template. And the best one is the template that everyone ends up using. So we're all on the same baseline model. And then it might take a period to do that. It might take a little bit longer. That's why we chose to just give them that. Like I did the SketchUp program and got that basic thing designed. Then the students are going to work on importing their ideas and their budgeted items into that. That might take about 5 periods. For us, we only had about half an hour each day, so it took quite a while to get through that process. And there were some check-ins that we did to make sure that everything was going along well with that. And then the students will submit those designs and prepare a little presentation. It doesn't have to be super formal, but there are going to be experts coming by and judging all of these. So they need to have some prompt to help them, like some questions that the experts or judges might ask, as well as things that they could say to the expert and judge. Then you actually have that competition where the experts and the judges come in. That's about 1 period. I believe that we actually may have done that um, during lunch. I I think it might have been during lunch so that other people could come in and check it out from this other classes, and that was pretty cool. So I like the SketchUp program for a 3D design program. It's a little bit easier than some other ones like the CAD programs that you might find online. I had middle school students work with it relatively no problem. I had some short instructions for them, telling them to like get the program, and then I'd shared the file via Drive, but it looks like that was quite a long time ago. And nowadays you can just share a design. So if you create a design in SketchUp, then that should work for you just fine. So this web-based version, you can like create a design right from here, or you can open a design from the computer. So that's what I ended up having students do themselves to get, like they got it off of Drive and then uploaded it. But it looks like SketchUp's figured out a way to share this just directly. So you can create a link, copy that link, and then just distribute that via Google Classroom so that students can see this version. But they are going to need to make their own so that everyone's not working on the same file, right? So they're going to need to duplicate this, which is not that complicated, but there is, yeah, you can like download, export. I believe, yeah, it's right here. There's an ability to duplicate it. And so they duplicate it and then work on their own version. And then once they're in here, you can do all kinds of things. Probably the most intuitive thing is the orbit and the pan for navigating around here. There's a couple other things that there's a whole tutorial series that they have of YouTube videos that I linked for my students, and that worked pretty well for getting them just to understand the basics of how to work with this. But they do have this like it's a 3D library, I believe, or warehouse, and you can search on here and you can find anything basically like sheds, all kinds of good things. So we were looking at some basic sheds. They were trying to get it to actually match their dimensions. So there are ways to change these objects a little bit um, and and manipulate them. But this is the basic idea, is that they were trying to get this in the garden space, get their objects in there, import mostly things onto this pre-existing design that has um, the the 6 garden beds that we already had, and try and figure out what was going to go where so that it looked good, right? There was also this fence over here. So it was kind of like there was a road, a little path to the school. And so I kind of put those in there. But the main thing was like, how much space do we have with these garden beds between the road and the fence? And so that was the most important stuff, to have the students be able to recognize in the program and how big their objects were. So that's the main idea. There is a lot that you can do to get them to be like really nice and finely tuned. And the eighth graders are doing like all kinds of like colors, and they're adding in trees. It was pretty cool. They showed me a few things, which is always nice when students can teach the teacher a couple things, right? That's the general idea. That's the program. I would encourage you to use that one because students sometimes have seen this in elementary school, at least with the schools that I was around. There was some elementary schools that were involved with this program. The school garden project, the nonprofit, had used SketchUp before with some students, and so some of them in elementary school had a little bit of experience with this as well. So it's a widely used thing in education, and it's perfect for something like this. Thank you for McLearning with me. Before you go, please check out the following services that I offer with my business. So if you click the link in my videos, this goes to my website. I might be changing it from Podia because I'm no longer doing the interactive videos for sale. I might put those up for free. But most of my other services are linked here. So you can see that I've got like a Teachers Pay Teachers and a Wyzant. The Teachers Pay Teachers has a lot of my assessments that I have for like the NGSS, as well as lessons that I made when I was actually a teacher in the classroom. So I've got quite a few things like CERs and other things on there. If you want to get one-on-one live support from me, either like with science or like working on like teaching support lessons and that kind of stuff, you can sign up through Wyzant. I have a link to there where you can contact me there, and we can schedule hourly appointments. And I've got a few other things on here like a Facebook page, and other social media. And if you're interested in getting professional development with me for like a team of teachers, a whole page with information on that. So yeah, feel free to check that out. Thank you.